Yeah, I'm on. How about you?
Well, like everything else, I just walked in the door because I was remote for most of the time, and I'm going to have to go back to remote in a little while. But hey, it's good to see you.
Yeah, it's been a busy week. We had a problem last week with your router crapping out. Here I fell off the roof of my house. Jesus Christ,
Well, we're fucking amateurs, Timmy. That's the bottom line, and unfortunately, amateurs have problems.
Yeah,
We had a little bit of rain, and the lights went off, and it blew out my modem. It was almost
yeah.
7 o'clock. They told me to go up and get a new one. I wasn't going to go up at 8 o'clock at night and try to get the podcast up and running. And I'm trying to see if we can use our remote program that we just put in because I have to walk out and do a few things. And I was going to do some of the show remote, but who the hell knows? Hey,
We'll see
Timmy, look,
what.
I just want to jump right into some stuff, man, because it's really crazy times, right? I'm going
Yeah,
to
it is.
jump into President Biden. Okay, because I got to tell you, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I never have been. I like to think that I'm a common sense kind of guy. I think through things before I talk, unless I'm drinking, and, and then I just spurt out some stuff that's probably been on my mind, and I just didn't want to say it. But hey, again, that's why I only go out once a month. And but this whole thing with Biden resigning from running for president, I don't believe for 1 second that he did this on his own. I believe this was a coup by a bunch of the richest people, the billionaires of the world, and the power brokers who would have lost everything if they couldn't get him out, like Nancy Pelosi and Chucky Schumer and the rest of those those so-called good government people,
Yeah,
right?
well, a lot of people share that same view. Okay, look at that resignation letter was not on White House stationery. It was not his signature really because he never underlines his last name. There's a lot of things going on, Sean, that has everybody suspicious that, in a sense, this was some kind of a coup and continues going on. Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
think about it. A couple days before, he said, "I don't care what you say, I'm not leaving."
You
Okay.
name any other candidate that would have allowed this to happen. Well, where
Well,
is he to come on out and say, hey, what's going? He's hiding.
Well, not only is he hiding, I kind of look at the big picture. They
Yeah,
pushed him out. We
they
watched
did.
right in front of our eyes where soon as he did a debate, and I believe they forced him into that debate because I think they wanted him out. And the best way to get him out is to let him come out, make a fool of himself, and then rally around the fact that he's a great guy and he's done great things. But you got to go, Joe, because you
Yeah,
can't win. And you
yeah,
got the Obamas and you got all these, Chuck Schumers and Nancy Pelosi's, and they all have a stake in wanting to stay in the power, Tim.
oh yeah. And look at and
And
all the staff people that work in the White House. Okay, Kamala's people and then Biden's people. It's all about jobs for these people too.
Well, the bottom line is it's the power brokers who are political guys that never worked a day in their life that makes tons of money,
Yeah,
millions of dollars. Uh, who knows how they make it? Because certainly their paycheck doesn't reflect somebody who should have 190 million in the bank like Nancy Pelosi.
yeah, yeah.
But that's for another story. But so let's just take this. So Joe comes out, they force him into a debate because why would you ever let that guy go out on a debate right now, right? But they
Yeah,
let him go out on a debate. And they do it early. Isn't that the first sign that something's fishy? They do it earlier than
it was
any other
early.
debate. Well, it was the earliest debate ever, if
Yes,
I'm
it
not
was
mistaken.
early.
And
Yeah,
and why did they do a debate so early? Well, because they knew they wanted to get rid of the guy. And if they have him do a debate and he falls on his face and everybody surrounds him and says, "We love you, we're your friend, we wouldn't tell you,
yeah,
this unless it's true," and they get rid of him and they give themselves time to replace him with Kamala Harris, right? And I
yeah.
don't know if everybody wanted her, but there's no way in the freaking world that this guy can announce that he's not going to run, and within 24 hours she's got 1,000 delegates supporting her before there's even a convention.
I don't even know if that's lawful, but we'll see. I
Well,
mean,
I think it's lawful for them to come out and say, we're going to do it.
well, the delegates got to go to the convention and they got to vote for her.
Yeah.
But really, I mean, you took the people's choice away. Really, all these people that went and cast votes for Biden, regardless, they took their voice away. Okay, now it's down to, a group of people, okay, that's deciding. So you got Obama Harris, okay, and she's vetting for vice presidents. Who the hell is she going to pick for a vice president that's stupider than her?
I agree,
You
but
know?
I'm in. Yep. Hang on one second, Timmy.
Sure. And while you're doing that, look at people. We don't seem to have our chat thing working. We don't know why. We've tried everything, but if you want to post comments, give it a shot. But we can't tell.
Can
It
you hear
looks
me
like I
okay?
lost Morse's connection. I don't know if I'm still on. There you are. What, you
Hey,
back on with the phone?
yeah, what I had to do is I had to jump off for a minute. Again, I told you I was leaving, and I had to do a few things. Can you hear me okay with our new?
Yeah, yeah, I do.
All right, so this is our new one of the newest additions, so that we can actually do these things remote. But let me just jump back. So you got Joe resigns. Kamala has 1,000 votes within 24 hours. It's almost impossible to think that's how do you call 1,000 people in 24 hours
And
and
she's
say,
got
hey, will you
right.
support me?
And she suddenly gets $81 million.
Yeah, I mean, and then you got to jump into the Trump thing, right?
Yeah,
Again, you got the Secret Service supposed to be the best of the best.
yes.
And they leave this guy on a stage with some guy running around the neighborhood with
And
range finders and drones
AR-15s, and
and
yeah,
and people screaming, "There's a guy on the roof with a gun!" And nobody in the Secret Service recognizes that,
yeah,
and he comes within millimeters of being dead.
yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, Timmy, but something just don't add up there.
Yeah, you know what? Look at a lot of people say, he got lucky. It was divine intervention here. Back in the day, I mean, George Washington, they were taking shots at him too. Okay, but still, it's insane to think that a sloped roof, okay, they could call a slope roof, okay, is the reason why they didn't have people up on that roof. It's,
That's about as sloped as I mean, come on, for Christ's sake. I mean, I don't go up on high roofs, but I've been on a lot of roofs as a firefighter. That
yeah,
ain't a sloped roof. A
no, it's
sloped
not.
roof is if you take a piss on it, it lands on your feet.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that thing, if you took a pee on that roof and you're laying down, you'd be laying in a puddle.
You
It's
know,
just nonsense.
sure.
It's
And
nonsense.
look at, I don't know if you heard some audio analysis there. As bullets went by the microphones, okay, in the stages, they took three of the bullets, which this guy fired three shots, okay, and they timed out based on the echo, okay, of where that shot came from. And they're saying, these experts now, they're saying three shots came from him based on, it took like 0.023 seconds. And then he said five other shots took longer. And why would it take longer if he was in the same spot? And this is why you keep hearing these theories. Was there a second shooter somewhere?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know
We
what?
don't know.
I still don't know if Kennedy got shot from the grassy knoll. You're never
Yeah.
going to know, because
Yeah.
government in the United States is as bad as government in Russia when
Yeah.
it comes to being honest with their people, right?
Sure.
In the
Yeah.
United States of America, what makes us great is the freedoms that we enjoy. It ain't the government that we have.
Yeah.
Right? It isn't the fact that like the government, the federal government is like in touch with its people and it does things to help its people. These are self-serving people like everybody else. And every government across the world, they're not your best friends. They're not getting up in the morning saying, how do I help Timmy and Sean? They get up and say, how do we get reelected? Oh, call Nancy real quick because we're going to sign this deal that's going to make, this chip worth 500 billion. And we
Yeah.
need to get in on that. And that's the stuff they're thinking about. And
Sure.
I got a kick out of listening to the. I'm going to tell you a funny story. So, every second week of July, I get off of Facebook for 2 weeks because it's a cesspool and I get sucked right into it, right? I'm no
Yeah.
better than the rest of the people. I go from putting pictures of the boss up to getting in fights and arguments with morons. But
Yeah.
maybe I'm the moron and they're right. But in my own little world, I like to share my opinions, but I don't want to fight about them.
Right.
So I had a guy call me today out, and I was on. I announced I wasn't going on, and I just I happened to get a couple beep, beep, beeps, and I looked, and this guy's beating the shit out of me. He's like, Sean, I'm reading your podcast notes, and I'm reading your Facebook posts, and I'm doing this and doing that. And man, you're disgusting. You used to be a Democrat. What happened to you? And I thought to myself, that's the problem with the world, that even if you are something of a political party and you see the thing going haywire, you don't have the courage of your own convictions to criticize the very party to try to get it back to the days of glory, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I sit home and I look at my life and I look at my grandkids and I look at my kids and I realize today's life for them in many ways sucks.
Yeah.
They can't afford to buy a house. Gas is $5 a freaking gallon in California, still $3.50 a gallon here in New York.
Yeah.
So, as they travel across the country, the ability to settle down in certain places is impossible for them. I'm sure there's a lot of people who think that for their own family, for their own kids. And it doesn't matter if you put me in a freaking glass and say you are been a Democrat your whole life, you can't break that glass. Bullshit.
Yeah.
I can criticize my own party for being a party that's going the wrong way.
I'm a registered Democrat.
So this guy's
It's insane. Yeah.
Well, this guy's criticizing me. And I'm like, screw you, dude. I'm like, what are you talking about? The fact that you were stuck in this pigeonhole and you don't think that you have the ability to climb out of it when it's not working for you, like the Jim Jones Kool-Aid, you got to drink it.
Yeah.
I want to see more Democrats come out and say our Democratic Party's going the wrong way, and we're going to fight our ass off to get it back to where it used to be when it took care of families, when it took care of labor unions, when it worried about how much gas was and how much college was and how much the mortgage rates were. The Democratic Party today is so far left, they don't care about that shit. They want socialized government so that they have people bowing down at their feet.
They want to be in
like
power
to the kings.
and control.
That's right. They want to be
Power
kings and queens.
control.
They're talking about taking away cash so that they can make us kiss their ass to get, buy a loaf of bread.
Harm farming, harm meat.
All of us
like that.
All of a sudden,
this country has 200 years of oil and natural gas right under our feet.
Timmy,
okay?
you got morons telling you that you have to stop eating your meat because cows are causing green gases and destroying the country. I mean, it's so insane that it could be a comic book.
Yeah,
it's so
crazy.
right in people's face.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the key is, like a magician, you do the trick right in front of their face because they never see things that are happening right in front of their face.
Yeah.
You do it off to the left or the right. You go, I seen your hand move it different. But if you're right in somebody's face, you don't see it. And I'm not a Republican by any means, any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I won my first election as an independent. I was always an independent. And the only reason I became a Democrat is because as an independent in a political arena, you can't even get into the meeting to have a discussion about what you need for your city. Yeah. They just shut the door. They go, we only have two caucuses here, Democrat, Republican. You're an independent. So you float around like you're in your pool on a raft. We're nowhere to go. Mm-hmm. So I jumped back into the Democratic Party. But I'm an independent guy. I'm an independent thinker. And I think Joe Biden was pushed out. I think Kamala Harris was set up to be the candidate because they couldn't get rid of her because she was a hand-picked woman of color, right?
Yeah.
And I think Donald Trump may have been set up. He may have been put in a position where, if he gets shot, oh well.
And not that it matters, but Obama is not black. She's Indian. Her parents are Indian.
I said the same thing. I don't know why they call her a woman of color. I mean, I know she's not white, but so my granddaughter is mixed race. So what can she say? She's black if she wants to, or white, whatever benefits them.
Yeah, whatever gets in most government benefits, I guess.
So I think the people in this country are smart. I think they're intelligent in every way, but I think sometimes we get put into a position that we've been in for so long that instead of breaking away or trying to change it, they simply defend it.
Mm-hmm.
And how can anybody defend a woman like Kamala Harris to be the president of the United States, the most powerful person in the world, when
And
she
look
has
at,
zero experience in anything,
right,
anything.
exactly.
And
This
she has
woman,
the most socialized votes ever in the federal government. This woman wants to get rid of private health care. Terrible idea, right? She
yeah,
wants to get rid of fracking. She wants to get rid of cows. She wants to get rid of electric or gas vehicles and make you have an electric cooker. She wants to bring the George Foreman cooker back. So that's how you got to eat. You got to use George Foreman, plug him in with a 30-foot lead to get it to the table. It's just nonsense.
the whole thing with
And
this DEI diversity garbage. Look at Cheeto, the Secret Service director. Okay, she's the DEI. Christ sake,
Kamala Harris.
no, Cheeto.
No, Kamala Harris.
Yeah, yeah,
Same thing.
yeah,
The
yeah,
president came out and said, I'm going to pick a woman of color. If I
yeah,
was a woman of color, I'd be embarrassed. If I was a man of color, I'd be embarrassed. If somebody said, I'm only hiring white people, I'd be embarrassed. I
yeah,
want them to say, I want to hire Shaw Moores because he's smart. Now, maybe they would never say that, but hey, the guy's smart. He's got some balls. He works hard. He's willing to give 120%. Yeah, right. I want to hire him. Not because of his color, not because of anything other than
yeah,
his qualifications. I just had another argument with another asshole on Facebook, right?
yeah,
Because I was reading all of these articles about how medical schools were pushing to get people into the schools that may have never been able to qualify prior to this whole diversity nonsense. Okay.
hmm,
So you got people getting into medical schools that would never have gotten in because they're not smart enough.
yeah.
And I
They
don't
don't
give
have the
a
breaks.
shit.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can't say, "Oh, well, we're going to let them in because they're Chinese, they're black, they're Indian, they're Eskimo." No, let them in because they're brilliant. So
yeah,
that when they're opening up your chest to fix your heart, they don't go, "Hey, what do you call that valve again?" Or you got people driving airplanes
yeah.
that don't know how to fly,
It's
don't even know how
insane.
to read the freaking the material the correct way, can't pass the flight exams. So what do? They reduce how hard it is to take these tests and think by letting people with less knowledge into these jobs. I guess you can do it if you're talking about Walmart, Target, Home Depot, Lowe's,
Hmm.
gardener, plumber, electrician and all them, because they're trade schools. You go in and you learn the job. I told my kids, go into a trade school. I'm
Yeah,
not saying they're not smart. I'm saying they're very smart, but they learn. There's people that are teaching them and teaching them and teaching them. And there's no greater education than somebody who's amazing at a job teaching you how to be a plumber.
right. Or any
Teach
kind of a skill job. I mean,
any kind
how
of
many
skill.
people go and they get a master's degree in this or that? They come out of college, they can't find a job.
But
Get a
you
trade.
don't put
Right.
them in to be an electrician without putting them through the school just because they're
Yeah,
someone of color. So
yeah,
I think we're in a tough spot in the country when we deal with that nonsense. And I pray that this Kamala Harris can't win.
yeah,
But I mean, there's people that show up at a rally jumping up and down like she's the next coming of Christ.
yeah, yeah,
And she will get you one step closer to the next coming of Christ because the world will just shit all over her.
yeah. Mother
Her and
Teresa.
Joe get pushed around.
Yeah, yeah.
You
I
know.
don't see her. Her popularity actually is far less than Biden himself. It's just
Yeah.
that they're pushing it so much to make you believe she's so popular, but it's not going to sell.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not like this Donald Trump. What do they call them, Trumpers or what? I'm not one of those people. Donald
MAGA,
Trump gets on my nerves,
MAGA,
right?
MAGA,
As a
MAGA,
person, I
MAGA.
don't. Yeah, I certainly wouldn't be able to hang around with him. And if I was out drinking and he came into a bar running his mouth, he'd be the first kind of guy I want to punch in a puss, right? But his policies over the course of the time he was there bettered my life because he's smart,
Yeah,
right?
well, I would say he's pretty.
He's
I
business
would say
savvy.
far smarter. He's been around. He knows it. He
Yes.
gets in the trenches. He learns the business, and he makes good business decisions. And so
I
does his
much rather
kid.
have. I'd much rather see a young, new, middle of the road Democrat who thought like my parents did back when they were young, got involved in politics, cared about unions, cared about health care, cared about their affordability, understand that capitalism is the most important thing, not trying to take my gas grill away or my gas washer and
Yeah,
dryer or my gas car. I'd love to see a new young blood come in, but not be so left that he's just you
Yeah.
know, they're almost like maniacs. And
Yeah.
I don't think I think people need to understand Kamala is worse than the squad.
My
She is
guess is
further
that,
left.
yeah. My guess is she's a patch, and I don't think she's going to be there before the end, by the end of September. That's my guess.
Well, I guess we'll see. I guess we'll all come down to where she is
Well,
in her numbers,
well,
right?
they got to have the convention on August 7th, and I don't see that the delegates are all going to go in there and say, "Hey, we want her." I don't see it happening. I just don't see. I think that if they invoke the 25th Amendment and get rid of Biden, right? She becomes president. She has to appoint a vice president. Okay, so you could see a whole mess going on, and they just may pull off as we are thinking, without being conspiracy theorist, okay, some kind of internal coup where you have a faction of people selecting whoever the Democratic
Look at
candidate will be.
here's the reality. I'm going to take it step by step one more time. You had a president who, in the dark cover of night, after having all of the elitists cut off his money and basically say, Joe, if you want your legacy ruined by us invoking the 25th Amendment and canning your ass because you're senile, you will resign. That's what I feel happened,
Yeah,
right? And
and on
basically,
top of it, in order to justify it, Joe, you've got COVID now too.
well, that was part of the whole deal, right? They
Yeah,
get him in, right? So let me just take this piece by piece because this
yeah,
is I want people to know what I'm thinking. So they get Joe to resign. He's forced out. This whole Kamala Harris thing has been in the plan for some time because there's
yeah,
no way that you can make 1,000, 1,500 phone calls in 24 hours and reach every one of these delegates who already commit before the convention, right? And
yeah,
then you have Donald Trump, who is actually, just a couple days before that, he's fired upon by an assassin, a 20-year-old kid who looked like he wouldn't be able to even pick his nose by himself, but somehow he's able to set this up where he climbs up on a roof and shoots the president. And an hour before they knew he was out there, people were saying that this kid was on the grounds, that he looked, a little scary. You had people screaming when he was up on the roof. The cops knew he was up on the roof. They notified the Secret Service, and somehow they still walked the president up onto the stage, and he gets
yeah,
shot at.
yeah,
And yes, he survived, but some poor innocent man is dead.
yep.
So whatever
Sorry.
their plan was, it still killed a poor innocent man.
Yeah, fire chief, a retired fire
All this
chief.
stuff cannot happen by accident or coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence. I believe that
Yeah,
this is a situation that was thought out, that maybe it backfired when they tried to shoot Trump. But
missed.
again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but this kid is 20 years old. He looked like he had some mental issues, right? But do you think if you and I went to a Biden rally and 100 yards from where he's standing, you and I climb up on top of a roof with guns, and people see us and start screaming, shooters on the
Yeah,
roof, that we wouldn't have
yeah,
been plucked and shot well before
yeah,
we could ever pick over the
exactly.
so I
Yeah,
just something fishy. And I'm not going to say that it was a setup to try to kill Donald Trump. I'm just saying, people, think about it.
yeah,
It isn't as easy as what you've seen. Think about it, and each day more shit's coming out of it. Hey, Timmy, let's jump over to the great city Cohoes, man. I got to be honest with you. Sometimes you say things and I just shake my head. A guy's talking out his ass, but you are a pretty smart guy. You're not the best looking guy I've ever seen, but you're pretty smart, right? And
yeah,
you said to me, Sean, I'm telling you, when they start doing the solar panels up at the reservoir, they're going to spring a leak around this reservoir. The walls are too thin, and this isn't a well thought out plan. I'm thinking, all right, Timmy, you've been drinking, and you're not an engineer, and why the hell would you think you know anything about that? But sometimes you do cease to amaze me. And so I'm sitting in my recliner trying to figure out what I'm going to do for the podcast, and I get a message from Timmy Thibodeau with a picture that says, hey, guess what happened? The reservoir sprung. And
Yeah.
you notice for the first 45 minutes, I didn't answer you because I didn't want to give you any credit for knowing that thing was going to spring a leak. And sure as shit, Tim sprung a leak.
Well, it's water displacement. You know, you can't compress water. And think about it. If you take a pool, okay, just take a pool and you put a large object in the pool, what happens to the water? It rises because it can't compress. So you're adding all that weight into this reservoir, and what happened is it's percolating out of the ground. So they end up getting a leak on the eastern corner, close to where the water towers are. And my guess is they keep putting more stress on the sidewalls of those things there. If you get a breach and they can't stop it, okay, you could end up having millions of gallons of water flowing down Vallee Boulevard.
You can have a wave pool going down Leach Street.
Yeah, now I'm not hoping that happens, but damn it, you know, my biggest concern about the whole solar panel project was putting all of that weight on the water, which is surface tension, okay? And then add snow and ice to it down the road, and you got anchors all around this thing. You're putting in enormous amount of stress, and it was built in 1911.
So
Okay.
Timmy, tell me this, right? So we're already 600,000 in money they didn't know they had to spend. Then
Yep.
they had to spend extra money to cut the grass because they didn't cut it the correct way. And now they're digging ditches around all of these parts of the
Yeah.
reservoir because they're springing leaks.
Yeah.
What is this thing going to be?
So
A $100 million project?
So what I'm thinking here is what I'm being told off the record, okay, is it looks like they got to dig a 2-foot trench 6 feet down and then pack it with clay all the way around that. Well, Sean, you know what? If you put your finger in the dike here, right here, okay, you get a leak up here. Okay,
Yeah, they always told you when you're in the submarine, if you're plugging one hole, there's another one coming. You better get back up to the top of the
Sure. And look,
surface, right?
these panels are made by a company called VSUN. They're a subsidiary of Japan, but they're made in Vietnam, okay? So we've got all these panels that came in from Vietnam that are all lined on up there to go in our reservoir. Why didn't we buy American, for Christ's sakes? Where if something goes wrong, it's easy to get replacements or whatever. You know,
I mean, I don't have the answers. I got to be honest with you. Over the course of the last week,
yeah,
even when I was on vacation, I was getting all these messages,
yeah,
right? And people keep asking me because I was a firefighter. I wasn't a
uh-huh,
police officer, right? But, you know, I always did my homework. I always knew I wanted to be the mayor of the city. I always knew that crime was a top issue, that we had to get rid of crime if we wanted to get people with money to build properties, which would then bring people in with money, which then in turn lets us open up businesses and then have music halls and
yeah,
parks and all the things. And I did everything backwards than the other people have done over the last course of the 75 years or so, right? And it worked.
yeah.
Okay. But crime is running rampant. Now, we had the sheriff on, and he's going to come back on again next week, I hope, because I really want to talk to him because I'm getting sick and tired of this. Over the course of a couple of days, I was told that a group of kids, the same kids over and over again, broke into a bar, broke into 2 bars, broke into another business,
I read
stole
some
money out of the businesses, rifled through their, you know, their cash.
I heard they even stole a cash register, Sean.
Stole the cash register, breaking windows, beating kids up on the street, beating up adults on the street. And so I made a couple phone calls today,
Yeah,
right? Because I don't believe everything I read on Facebook. So I called a couple of people that I know, and sure as shit, they told me in their business that it did happen. And
yeah,
they were so disgruntled because this is what they're told time and time again. Oh, they're only 15, 16, 17. There's nothing we can
can
do.
do.
And
Yeah,
let me tell you something, Timmy. I used to say to the people in this administration that I took over, some of the people that have been here for a long time, that I thought was time for them to move on, not because they weren't great people, but time has passed them by, and so did the way things are done. And I used to say to them, the most destructive comment that any of you can make is, that's not how we used to do it. You're right. That's not how you're going to do it because we're doing it different because things have to change. So we had John McDonnell on. We talked about bail reform. We talked about raise the age. And although he is a lawmaker supportive of those programs, he did admit to us on the show that they needed to have some tweaks, and we need to bring them back because I want to see if they made those tweaks. I also want to see if they're keeping their pay raise, and if they lost the court case, which ironically the legislature gave themselves the highest pay raise in the country.
35 grand.
And the trade-off was they couldn't work a second job. But how ironic, the Republicans sued and said that's not constitutional. And so somehow I have the feeling that they are not only going to get to work a second job, but they're going to keep their raises. But we'll bring John back on and ask him that. But so raise the age has caused some problems. What I don't believe for a second that any great leader, and Keeler is not a great leader. He really isn't. If you look around our city,
Look at the crime increase since he's taken over.
well, crime has increased. The city's appearance is a pigsty. If you and I walk down tomorrow, we ought to walk down with your drone, Timmy, and take some pictures. You'll see weeds. A $3.5 million sidewalk. We put in weeds growing out of every part of it. All of the trees and the landscaping, all, garbled up by weeds, garbage cans tipped over. I mean, he walks by this shit every day, doesn't he? Or does he just go down to his office where there's nice new furniture that I purchased and sit in there and say, look how beautiful things are?
Yeah, and I got people telling me still that whatever you want to call that thing on Columbia Street with the weeds coming out, how terrible it looks.
I mean, it's a pigsty. The city's a pigsty. Bill Keeler is a he's not even a caretaker. He's got a $20,000 raise. He took care of his whole family. Yeah. He's sitting back collecting $100,000 a year as the mayor, $100,000 in his retirement as a trooper, living in a big fancy house. Congratulations! Glad you have a great life. I'm happy for you. But you know what? Not at the expense of everybody else. I mean, I want to walk down to a city that I helped build. That at one time we were talking about parking garages because it was packed 7 days a week. To a city now that has broken trees, garbage, bums, people laying on the sidewalks, drinking beer. It's people moving out of the high-end apartments because they don't want to live where there's nobody taking care of the streets. There's no cops. 787 is like a Lebanon Valley Speedway again. There's nobody down there. All of these things that we cured, he just let fall the shit, right?
Yeah.
But if you're just going to keep saying, there's nothing we can do, there's nothing we can do, there's nothing we can do, and now the cops show up and say, there's nothing we can do. Well, here's what we can do. I got an idea. If there's nothing we can do, let's just get rid of all the cops and save $5 million a year for the city. You don't need them because there's nothing they can do.
Nothing they can do.
And you don't need a full-time mayor because there's nothing he can do. And since there's nothing nobody can do, let's do nothing and have a free-for-all and let 4 square miles turn into like this circus that it's become.
It's so bad, Sean, that these guys here throw rocks right to the fire trucks sitting in Central Station. Right.
And the guy who did it was arrested the day before for throwing it through the window.
Yeah.
And the business windows.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you something. There is something you can do. First of all, you can raise your voice and start screaming using your platform of how bad these laws are.
Yeah.
Secondly, you can just keep arresting these kids over and over and over and let the court take the heat and blame it on them for not doing anything. Let them. When they start having to take the heat, they start saying, oh, there's a problem here, right?
Well, the police they don't want to file the reports.
That's right. You can also start using Child Protective to go after the parents. There's a lot. You could pass a curfew if that was necessary. There's a lot of things you can do. But if you're not going to arrest the kid who's 17 that's doing crime 7 days a week, every day, then you're going to have 70 kids doing the same thing. And that's what the city has become. I had a friend of mine say, I've left my business door open 1,000 times over 40 years. Nobody ever dared to walk into my store. He goes, now I don't leave it open sometimes when I'm in there by myself. Because they've already come in here while I turn my back and steal my stuff. And I call the cops and they say, there's nothing we can do. I think the first thing you got to do is get rid of Billy Keeler. You got to get a new mayor in the city that has the courage of his own convictions, that cares about the city, that cares about the weeds being pulled out of the sidewalks, that cares about not stepping over garbage. And I'm going to tell you, there's people out there that love the city that would do that. You can ask DPW. I'd look out the window of my office and I'd see garbage on the street. And I'd say to myself, well, I'm going to leave it there for at least an hour to see if DPW drives by, and they'll stop the car and pick the garbage up out of the street. Mm-hmm. And when they drove by and left the garbage on the street, I'd call up Kenny Radliff. Those people would be in my office, and I'd say, why do you work for the city? And they'd be like, what do you mean? I go, you just drove by a McDonald's bag and all of the shit with it all over the street, and you just drove your truck right over the top of it. You didn't see it? Yeah. Well, then why didn't you stop and pick it up? And I did that so much that I'd look out the window after about 6 months and they'd stop in the middle of the road and pick up the garbage because they were taking pride, because we instilled the pride into them. We demanded them to want to have a city that was as clean as the guy who was the mayor. And every day, if you drill that into their heads, they become conditioned. But if you let them just drive over it like they do now, they become conditioned to do that.
Hey, it starts with leadership. Look at DPW Commissioner Hennessy at the corner of Egbert and Valete Street. He's got a DPW truck parked there blocking access for that street, and the truck's not even inspected, okay? Failed You know, we talked about that before. But, I mean, if the attitude is that, then everything else goes to shit, too. They don't care.
Look at, there's nobody that cares. And I know there's people that could run for that office that do care. And you know what? Bill Keeler's not one of them. He doesn't care. He walks past he looks like Lurch. Got his head down, his arms grabbing onto the, along the sidewalk. And he walks right past. I seen him step right over plastic bottles, bend the ass over, have some pride, pick it up, throw it away. I used to walk the city too, not because I wanted to get in shape, because at the end I'd stop and get a milkshake. I'd walk the city to make sure the garbage was picked up.
Yeah, well, it's
that
not
the grass
his job.
was cut.
Not his job, okay? Then like he called one DPW worker during the council meeting, okay? You're just a laborer. These guys here work in all kinds of weather, and I would never say something like that to these guys.
I used to say to them, you're the cog that keeps the city moving. I used to get out 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd go over to the water break, and you know what? I'd watch them and see if they needed anything. And you know who used to show up? Big Ted. I go, what kind of life do you have? But he sometimes at 2 o'clock in the morning, he must be listening to it or find out, and he'd walk over just to see if they needed coffee. He was a gentleman. He'd be like, you're here? Why are you here? I said, well, I'm in charge of the city. I should be here. I want to make sure with people, and I'd make sure we stopped at houses and put notes and knocked on doors and say, now they shut my water off. I go to take a shower. I don't even know they shut it off. They don't even tell you. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, you're in the water and you're taking a cold bath in about 8 seconds. You're like, what the hell happened? Then there's no water at all. All I'm saying is, Cohoes Proud wasn't my slogan. It was the way of life that people could be conditioned to feel about their city. The only one that hated it was your brother, Pat. He used to say, I hate that slogan. I won't vote for you again. But everybody else took pride in it.
He moved out of Cohoes, too.
Yeah, he moved out. I'm going to get a sign. Where's he live?
Up in Round Lake, I believe.
I'm going to get Round Lake Proud a sign and put it in front of his driveway.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, everybody. We appreciate you watching the show. And I know that you're all like, wow, there's a lot of issues going on. But here's the problem. The bigger we get, the more it takes for us to deliver a show. And I'm really proud that when me and Timmy started, we had about 6 people. And now we have an organization that follows us and says, hey, last month you had 60,000 people. Mm-hmm. We have people who want to sponsor the show. There's a lot of things happening. And we're just not able to keep up with it as quick as we'd like to. So, hey, we have some glitches and we're working through them. And you know what? We want to have our own studio pretty soon where we are in the same place together doing the show, so we don't have to deal with all these other nuances. There's a lot of problems that go on when you're in 2 different places. It's a lot of work, a lot of a lot of different equipment, a lot of
Time Warner needs, and Time Warner really isn't the greatest where I live. My power goes out all the time. I had to buy these additional things you plug in just to get a signal so I could do the podcast. But hey, we want to keep bringing you the Cohoes news, the world news, the local news. Danny McCoy, if you're watching, I know you're a closet watcher. I got to talk to him again tonight. He was actually in Cohoes, I think, at the music hall, if I'm not mistaken. And he promised me that he'd be on over the next couple of weeks. I talked to Sheriff Apple because we want to talk about there's nothing we can do, there's nothing we can do, there's nothing we can do, and hear what he thinks there's things that can be done, because he has probably one of the best departments. He's in not Troy, excuse me, he's in Albany, and they're cleaning clock in Albany, and every time you see crime being stopped, it's coming from him. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And he's really got his shit together, and so does his sheriffs. Albany has a great PD. Troy has a great PD. Cohoes has a great PD. But if the leadership, and it's not happening in Troy because Camilla, she is kicking ass over there. But if you're in Albany, if you're in Cohoes, what you get is there's nothing we can do, nothing we can do. Yeah, and I will tell you, as a legislator, I was told a million times, Sean, there's nothing you can do. And I guarantee you that I got it done. And I'll tell you a funny story. Danny McCoy told me that one time John McDonald said to him, Danny, will you please tell Sean to stop calling me? He's actually making me physically sick, because the way I got things done is I never stopped, and I never stopped, and I never stopped. And you never stop until it's done. And it's never done until you get it done the way you want it. And they say, how did you do it? I said, I just did it. How did you do it? I did it. Did what? I did it. Did what, Sean? I just did it. Keep pushing forward. Yeah. Whatever is out there, it's a battle, but you out-battle them people. And I got a lot of things done against the will of a lot of people, probably why they killed me. But if you don't think about politics as I got elected today and the first thing I want to do is get reelected, and you think, hey, I got 4 years, and if they throw me out, let me give the best 4 years that this city's ever had, you can do a lot of things. So, hey, thanks for watching Truth, Logic, Political Bullshit. I hope it looked okay for my remote location. We want to try that tonight because next time I'm on vacation, I can do it from the ocean. And I'm
up here doing it all. Okay, yeah.
Timmy's up here taking all the heat. But, hey, Timmy, it's good to see you.
Yep.
Got a little advice for you. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't climb on your roof no more, because Timmy climbed up on his roof. He broke his flip-flop, fell off from one roof to the next roof to the ground. And luckily, he landed on his head because he's still alive and he's still with us. So,
and I got right back up on that roof because I wasn't losing to no roof. Look at have a good weekend, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
See you next Wednesday, everybody. Take care.
Take care.